Here is the 2024 Subaru Impreza Sport in Oasis Blue Pearl. This is refresh for the 6th gen, and this year they're offering an RS, which has more horsepower and torque. It's a completely different engine, but it's all derived from the same powertrain as the Crosstrek. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides, and the Sport and the RS will have LED fog lights. The base will not. There's only 3 trims. There's no sedan anymore. The RS is paying heritage to the 90s Rally Sport hot hatch, which I wish they would have gave a little bit more performance, but I'm happy that we still get an increase of 30 horsepower more and 33 pound-feet torque more than this. Standard steering response LED headlights and daytime runnings. The grille compared to the Crosstrek will be a little bit different in the interior part, and the same thing with the fog light assembly, because it'll be more of a boomerang going downwards, whereas this is going upwards. And on the center part, you'll still receive the horizontal lines. Clearance is at 5.1 inches instead of 8.7. So if you're not looking to go to an SUV, you want something a little sporty, well, now you have the return of the hot hatch. It's a sleeper underneath the hood though. It's a 2.0 liter flat 4-cylinder boxer engine producing 152 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque. No more manual transmission either, only the Lineartronic CVT transmission that mimics an 8-speed automatic transmission. Standard symmetrical all-wheel drive and torque vectoring with dynamic control, and achieving 27 mpgs for the city and 33 mpgs for the highway. 18-inch wheels is set, and on the side, I think it looks more dynamic than the prior gen, even though it's been simple touches that Subaru has done. Gloss black elements is going to surround the windows. The lower skirt will flare out a touch when you go into the RS, and you'll get some gloss black elements with a more sporty wheel design also. But the major difference really is what's housed underneath the hood, and all of which will be more powerful when you get into the RS compared to Honda and Toyota. The Mazda 3 hatch will still have more power underneath the hood, but it will be lacking in suspension because this is 4-wheel independent suspension, no torsion beam like they have there. 26 pounds less than the RS, just a touch over 3,100 pounds. C-structure LED taillights, and yet again the Crosstrek comes into the rear, which when we're in a sport trim, I don't care if there's not a lot of performance underneath the hood. I still would like to see some exhaust finishers, because when you go into Honda and Toyota or Mazda, you're getting that, and it makes it look a lot more dynamic, especially if you go to the RS, because it lacks in that department to give the sport heritage for the 90s hot hatch and for the Impreza, because we're not getting a sedan anymore. We're not getting a manual transmission. So give me something that makes it pop just like the rivals. Quick release going into 20.4 cubic feet of storage, bottle holders on the side, and maybe some pins or crayons, whatever floats your boat. Some bag holders, or you could put a net. This is to turn the light on and off, and it's the same on both sides underneath the floor. Gets a storage pocket and the spare tire elements, but we don't receive a spare tire underneath here. Split fold the rear bench in the back if you're tall like me, and this is a hatchback, so you can kind of go inside. It's only 5.1 inches of clearance. That's going to max cargo to 56 cubic feet of storage. We need to go inside, start it up, so you can hear that exhaust note. Six-way manual seat adjustment for the driver, 4-way manual seat adjustment for the passenger. Optional power seat adjustment for the driver is on the RS. We have the optional heated front seats because we have option package 23, which adds blind spot, rear cross traffic, automatic emergency steering, and the power moonroof. Headroom and leg room. The RS will get these sport pedals and the same dashboard as the Crosstrek and the Legacy. The major difference is you're not getting the storage for the passenger side. 11.6-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, AM, FM, streaming Bluetooth audio. Put it into reverse, 180-degree reverse camera full trajectory, and the lines will expand outwards. dual climate control settings. When you click onto here, you can just move it up and down. It is a little glitchy for the response, but you also have buttons on the side, and you can turn up and down or turn the audio sound system on and change the tracks with physical buttons. QI wireless charger we do not have with a USB port. This would be where the QI charger is. There isn't any pass-through, and it's the same setup as the Crosstrek here. Here's the key fob for the new Impreza. The shifter area will be a little bit different opposed to the RS. It'll have the contrast stitching around it and look a little bit more sporty. Elbow area, because armrests are pushed back so far, but it is a deep storage pocket, and you have another storage tier here with a 12 volt. The steering wheel is 3-spoke, multi-function, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist with the paddle shifts, 4.2-inch informational display, which can go through an array of information for the driver, including the SI driving mode. The nice thing about the dash that has been cleaned up prior with the Crosstrek is we used to have a little area here for informational displays on the Crosstrek. Now we have that information right here that you can just swipe across. Auto dimming rear view mirror, and the eyesight is pushed up enough where you can still put your hands underneath it. The door panels in the dash configure in together, and it's going to be soft to touch on the top and where you rest your arms. One touch up and down for the front windows, and a smaller storage pocket with 2 beverage holders carved out. Headroom for the back. If you move too much though, you're going to hit the headliner. It is more or less carved out for you, as you can see. Feet is not going to be an issue, nor leg space when it's 2 occupants in the back. Storage only behind the passenger seat, no USB ports, you got to go to the RS. Armrest with cup holders. The door is going to be stripped of that soft material, so it's going to be plastic everywhere except for where you rest your arms. Smaller storage pocket that can fit 2 beverages, a total of 10 cup and bottle holders. Sliding into the center, the rails are pushed up enough, but you'll still be sharing some feet space if you're sitting into the center. Butt and shoulder space will also be shared, but it's the same as the Crosstrek, and headroom is actually not bad considering this is a wagon. 152 horsepower and 145 pound-feet of torque. This is not going to be the most powerful engine option. One thing I hate right off the bat is the auto start stop. I don't like it. We're going to show you some of the performance. This is not the RS. Here we go. Now some of the corners. Feels good. Staying planted. Four-wheel independent suspension, it's working good. No tire spin yet. It's lacking a little bit in the performance area, but for the everyday, it's still good. Composed, a little bit noisy. And to finish it up, you're going to hear a lot of road noise that's going to filter in. You're sitting a little bit lower, but it's not so much lower than the Crosstrek. You're just a little bit over 3 inches less. It feels a little bit more tight though. You're not sliding. I like that. You can go at a higher speed, but it's going to take me to some pros and cons. Starting with the pros is you still get pretty dynamic drive for the most part. I mean, when you're hovering around the $30,000 price point or a little less, it's hard to get a lot of performance underneath the hood. They become sleepers, in which it would be the same thing if you go to Honda and Toyota, but this is going to pack a little bit more horsepower and torque when you go into the RS, which I have a review. I'll tack it at the end so you can click on it and check out the difference. Both of them handle well. No difference really in the suspension. You're going to get a reworked WRX steering, so I like that. It's about 10% stiffer chassis. It's a little bit less noise than the prior gen, but for the 6th gen, I would have expected a lot more than just a touch more. So that is something that goes into the con. Visibility is good. You have Subaru eyesight. The car is watching you as you drive, and it's watching people outside also. And the nice thing about the eyesight is it's right here on the windscreen, which it's not gonna get dirty if mud flips on it. It soaks up the imperfections in the road pretty good with an 18-inch wheel. Some other pros about the vehicle is you're getting a choice. You can either go Crosstrek or Impreza. So if you don't want an SUV, you can now option a wagon because it's basically the same thing. There's a few differences on the exterior, but not a significant amount to make it where it's a completely different car. Some cons, people usually expect the Impreza to be fast. The same thing with the BRZ or even the WRX, in which they have made the performance a little bit less. And this is what I mean by that. Maybe because they've changed it to where it's just a standard CVT and you can't option a manual transmission. It takes a little bit of the fun away, but I feel like it's just a little bit underpowered even though this thing doesn't weigh nothing hardly. Back seat is good, you can fit 3 occupants. Cargo capacity is excellent. Going to the rivals, whether it's Honda or Toyota or Mazda, Mazda will be the fastest, but dynamics is better on this. So if you are taking some corners on a little bit of a race light to light, you may actually beat the Mazda. But in most cases, you'll probably lose, especially if they have the turbocharged engine. Even with the Torsen beam suspension in the rear, it's still going to be hard to keep up because it has 250 horsepower, whereas here, you're not even getting 200 horsepower in the RS. As for the Honda, it's going to be more grown up, a little bit wider inside. You sit a little bit lower. Here you sit a little bit higher. The windows are bigger here, and you have plenty of space in each row, which is basically the same thing in the Honda. The major difference there is you have 4 trims, whereas you have only 3 trims here, and the top trim would not even be able to compete with the SI. As for the Corolla, it's going to be the smallest variant. Back seat's going to be super tight. In the area where you sit, you barely can fit your butt. They make it any smaller, I'm going to be sitting on the floor. And as for the Mazda 3 hatch, it's going to have a dynamic style on the exterior. It's going to have a lot more blind spots, but it's going to be more quiet and more premium materials, but it comes at a price. So you'll have to fork out quite a bit more dough in order to get that performance. So keeping it around the 30,000 or less, this is a bargain deal. The one big problem I have with the Impreza Sport is the interior just has too much style and looks as the Crosstrek because it's basically the same exact vehicle, same powertrain. I wish it was a little bit different because it's the Impreza and we're doing this 90s retro RS, but we're not giving the proper powertrain to it to make it that hot hatch. Yes, it's better than Honda and Toyota with performance, but I want it to be better than the Mazda 3 as well. Throw a turbocharge and make that thing liven up. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Check out the next video, merchandise, website, and Instagram. Leave a comment and a like. And I'd like to thank Subaru Wesley Chapel for giving us this 2024 Subaru Impreza Sport for our car review.